Well, it's fair to say that Donald Trump's foreign policy is definitely moving and grooving. Yep, just like we saw in that particular video, it's a little awkward sometimes, but it's a lot better than the previous death cult, as there are so many important developments right now happening between Russia, Ukraine, the larger geopolitical new world order, and the bigger talking points that are being issued out by all of the Western leaders against Russia right now. How will this play out, as there's some major developments on the battlefield right now, is exactly what we are going to be discussing in this particular video, as Trump's foreign policy and actions have endeavored even his harshest critics to flee the country, as Rosie O'Donnell just revealed that she left America because of Donald Trump. Greenland, just by the way, held their elections. The opposition Democratic Party that wants to separate from Denmark overwhelmingly won, as a lot of people see this as a step closer towards the United States coming in and becoming the larger kind of influence in that specific region. Will that actually translate into some kind of larger, bigger objective that could be met here from Donald Trump's wish list? Only time will tell, but it definitely does look like it's going to be a difficult battle, as now the tariff battle has begun, and it's going back and forth between China, between Canada, between Europe. As the latest news we are getting is that Canada has confirmed a 25% counter tariff on the United States starting tomorrow. Then we heard news that they're taking the tariff. Now they're taking the tariff back. Again, it's very complicated here, creating a lot of economic instability, as the larger, bigger conflict now is with Europe, as the European Union is going on the attack in this trade war with Trump, as Brussels just announced a tariff on U.S. products in response to 25% import duties from the United States. This will, of course, anger Donald Trump, who is going to retaliate in his own way. As clearly the relationship between the United States and Europe isn't the best as of late. They have been at odds with each other, not just with their constitutional freedom, moral objectives, especially when it comes to people being arrested for memes inside of Europe. But there's also a big purge against right-wing political ideology inside of Europe that they are absolutely allergic to. They cannot allow anyone who is a populist, anyone who is just a little bit right of Karl Marx, to have any position of power, and they have essentially created a monopoly of control that they are not letting loose of ever, creating this larger divide, which now has been seen through this larger negotiation with Ukraine. And now, of course, we have this bigger trade war, as now Zelensky soon will be making his way back to the White House, as some people are even expecting him to potentially wear a suit. Will he not? We will see how all of this will kind of develop from here. But so far, the United States and Ukraine have met in Saudi Arabia, and they have brokered a peace deal, a ceasefire deal that will allow the fighting to stop for 30 days, as they have just given the peace deal, the ceasefire, to the Russians, and the Russians have time now to answer back, specifically with all of the plans that were just laid out in front of them that they took no part in organizing. What will happen here? Well, there's still a lot of questions regarding Ukraine, as I think if there's a breakdown of communication here, I think if this deal doesn't go through, there are definitely going to be more serious questions raised about Ukraine, what's happening in that specific country, as Poland just arrested a Ukrainian woman that has been convicted of selling 56 human kidneys, as throughout periods of conflict, there always is human trafficking, there always is adult trafficking, child trafficking, organ trafficking, and there are a lot of questions still being raised here about, whoa, what was really happening under the cover over this fog of this bigger conflict, as we are also getting news, according to retired Colonel Douglas McGregor, he is confirming that Mexican drug cartels now have Javelin missile systems that were originally sent to Ukraine that now allegedly are on the U.S. border, according to McGregor. Is that true here? Well, we don't really know. We cannot confirm this, but we have heard our own rumors about this specifically, which would create a very dangerous situation for Donald Trump. U.S. Border Patrol that already is using U.S. drones to patrol Mexican cartel drug activity in south of the border. You add that to the fact that an InfoWars employee was on their target list that also just had his life taken away. And I think we're still in a situation where things could go any way with the Ukrainians. Hopefully, the peace deal is signed here. Hopefully, tensions stop, the conflict stops, the trafficking stops, and this larger endeavor is finally ended. As there's huge sums of money for the military-industrial complex that always seems to be spent on war. As soon as the war in Afghanistan ended, the war in Ukraine popped up. Before that, it was other wars. It was other theaters that our money was just being blanketly spent on, wasted away what will be a potential next conflict that the intelligentsia, the deep state, will be looking for after this one. Well, hopefully they will be out of luck and not be able to find anything, as now we have new leadership that is promising, of course, more peace deals. Now, on the battleground, some very interesting things are happening in Ukraine and inside of Russian territory that we will tell you in a little bit, as the United States just announced, hey, we're going to give them, we're going to give the Ukrainians back some weapons. Not really giving them back. The United States says they're going to continue the supply of weapons to the Ukrainians, and they're going to continue sharing intelligence, specifically what also is happening inside of Russia, inside of the Kursk region, where the Ukrainians have had some significant losses, according to multiple reports. Now, before getting into those reports, we wanted to tell you about wearechange.shop. We got a lot of really great products available to you. Tea is one of those particular products. We have a lot of great tea. The healthiest one, in my opinion, is this lemon ginger snap tea. That is really awesome. You can see it behind my desk here. And I think this is the first ever microplastic-free tea. And we went out of our way to make sure the packaging didn't have any kind of major microplastics in it. We made sure the tea is actually loose leaf tea. Most teas, again, all of those little paper bag things, they're not paper, they're plastic, and when you put extremely hot water in it, it leaches into your drink. You drink it, and it's horrible for you. Many people are finding it one of the key contaminators of human beings. Cans also are really bad. Canned food, extremely bad. Huge PFAs. Huge PFAs in teas. I love tea, and I want to drink tea in a way where I don't get poisoned. All right, I don't put endocrine disruptor. I don't put crap into my body that has been ending up in our organs. Specifically, in males, they've been finding microplastics, and that's why we decided to have a happy pair of testicular fortitude, a happy pair representing male reproduction in its fullest extent, happiest extent. And you got a big pair of white happy balls on the tea bag with our tagline that says, "Don't get teabagged." Don't get teabagged. Check out our tea on wearechange.shop and support this independent media network and support your own independent health journey. It took us like 4 months to do this, because people were like, okay, we could do this cheap, we could do this quick, or we could take our time, and we could source it, and we can make sure this is actually going to be a good product that people are going to be enjoying. We made sure that it's a good product. You get it right now. wearechange.shop. Now, let's continue on with this video, as the developments on the ground inside of Ukraine are very interesting. As Reuters now is even admitting what we were reporting a couple days ago. Now, there was people online saying, oh, fake news, no way, lies. And we were like, no, we're actually looking at the battle footage. We're looking at all the Telegram channels from the troops. We're looking at all of the reports coming in, and it definitely did look like the Ukrainians lost a significant amount of manpower and troops inside of the Kursk Russian territory that they have ventured into. Right now, the Ukrainians are on the verge of losing their territory inside of the entire Kursk region, And the Russians have gotten a big foothold in that specific region, as the Ukrainians now just launched a surprise counteroffensive in the Tarask region, where they are making significant gains in the south of Ukraine near the Donbass region. So Tarask is where the Ukrainians are actually making some significant gains here while losing some gains in the Kursk region. Now, when it comes to these negotiations, when it comes to what's going on right now, we're seeing one talking point given out by Rubio, given out by Macron now, and all these European leaders. They're all saying the same thing. The ball is now in Russia's court. That's the key talking point here. Will Russia accept this ceasefire proposal that will stop fighting for 30 days? The U.S. is, of course, backing this, but as we're getting reports here from the New York Times, that this poses a dilemma for Putin, whose Russian delegation didn't have any kind of part in creating this ceasefire deal. As the latest information that we're getting is that Putin is looking over the details of this deal very seriously, and he is awaiting a response to be made here soon. As Donald Trump even specifically announced, hey, as soon as the ceasefire done, 75% of the job is done, and then we're going to decide who gets what territory. That's what is going to be happening here, according to Donald Trump. As some people are saying, we should still be cautious because the Russians weren't aware of the details that they were sent on the ceasefire plan. And so far, we are waiting for the developments to kind of happen here. As right now, the first thing that this deal does is just create a 30-day truce. 30-day truce. We got 30 days. Sit down and make up a peace plan here, because clearly negotiations have failed. Clearly, Russia and Ukraine aren't willing to meet in the middle. We're hearing that the Russians are now seeking guarantees. Marco Rubio is saying, the Secretary of State of the United States, if Russia says no to this, it is saying a lot. Putin says that he needs a long-term peace deal that needs guarantees here. And all of this is happening as we are reporting on the developments on the front lines for you, just like we did a few moments ago. Now, Putin is also accused of launching a drone strike on Kiev after Trump challenged him to tango and agree to this ceasefire deal. What will the Russians be doing here? As right now, I think it's one of the most kind of dangerous moments and times, as you could potentially see the Russians saying, you know what, hey, this is about to end. Let's try to gobble up as much territory as we can right now. Let's try to throw everything we can since we started this war machine. That's a larger possibility here, but overall, that's what some people are potentially expecting here. But seeing some of the comments from the Russians, seeing this interview that was done by the foreign minister Lavrov with Mario Naval, highlights that might not be happening here, and that the Russians most likely probably will be agreeing to this deal, as Lavrov described how now the United States and Russia are actually having the same kind of geopolitical objectives and interests that they could actually agree on. Here's a segment of the start of the interview that I found very interesting.
I think what is going on in the United States is a return to normalcy. The United States has always been the country of two big parties who competed between themselves, who changed ownership of the White House. But the division during my years in the United States, which is starting from 1981, I've been there several times, serving for a long period. Compared to that time, the division now is absolutely striking.
Yeah. Lavrov then goes on and talks about how the West kind of moved away from Christian values. More importantly, a lot of people on the left, the liberals, the Democrats, the communists hate Christians. They hate religion. They hate family. It's a part of their kind of core principles. That's why you saw Black Lives Matter, a kind of communistic front, put in their larger code, larger kind of guidelines that they were for breaking up the family unit. And those are their own words for a very specific reason. And a lot of the BLM organizers were just radical left-wing fanatics here. And that's why Europe is moving more and more closer to the left. If we look at Russia, they still kind of represent a nationalistic right-wing kind of ideology that some people would say is more aligned with the Christian values that Donald Trump is more aligned with representatively when it comes to conservatism and the larger kind of Republican political ideology, which is there to preserve those values. Now, I watched a lot of this interview. I watched a lot of what Rubio had to say here, and it's a very interesting perspective. But essentially, what we see here throughout these larger kind of talks is that the Russians want a deal here. As another thing that's on the table here that I think is worth noting and worth talking about is the bigger possibility of China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, and other nuclearly armed countries coming to a negotiation table and getting rid of nuclear weapons. I think that's a possibility that could happen, as well as Donald Trump previously talked about how he tried to achieve this bigger geopolitical goal in his first administration in 2016 through backroom channel dealings that no one even knew about until he actually came on the campaign trail and said, yeah, I'm trying to get rid of nuclear weapons in the entire world. And if that would be achieved, if that would happen, that would be something that is incredible. Now, say what you may about Trump's strategy here, how he's moving around, how he's implementing a lot of this. A lot of people are now kind of critical that Donald Trump is continuing arms shipments to the Ukrainians and sharing intelligence. Say what you may, but a few months ago, the possibility of peace here was only issued in a campaign promise. It does look like Donald Trump is moving forward with his campaign promise. And during the Biden administration, the possibility of this war ending wasn't there. Now it actually is. And I think we are going to be making some significant gains towards that, and that deserves to be celebrated. And if you agree, share this video with your friends and family members. A lot of people are saying, oh, it's not perfect. Nothing is perfect. This is a messy process. There's so much history. There's so many alliances. There's so many agreements before this that have entangled Ukraine, NATO, Russia. There's so many countries involved here that this truly is a big, crazy, chaotic mess. How will this mess be cleaned up? I don't care. I just want it cleaned up. I just want the end of this kind of ritualistic sacrifice of the state of so many young Slavic men. If you agree, share this video. Get yourself some tea. We are change.shop. We got some great stuff available to you there. I love you guys. Stay tuned for more, all here exclusively on youtube.com/wearechange.